Bass, what's up, brother? See if we can get Amira in here soon. Thank you guys for joining again. I really appreciate it. Bass, you're not early, man. You're right on time. Good to see everybody joining. I was 1 minute late. I was already getting texts from people. I know, Josh. I was 1 minute behind, but I'm here now. I appreciate you showing up. I don't have the music playing in the background. There she is.
Yo,
What's up?
don't try to make it seem like I was late. I sent you a text and I said, I don't see the live on your Instagram.
You're absolutely right. You were not the late one. I was 60 seconds late. I've already been reminded of that 3 times in the comments.
Oh,
Um,
because I thought we were talking about me being late.
no, 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 no. It was me, Josh called me time. I can't disagree with him. He's absolutely right.
Mhm.
Um, but we're here now, and I'm super excited to be with you, Amir. It's been a minute since I've actually seen your face. It's so nice to see you.
I know, I know. I missed your going away party. I was over there. I think I had the early Rona. That's what it was. You know how every black person has said
Yeah,
that like anytime in between November.
right. Right. You had Rona back on February 2nd. That's why you were staying in the house back then. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, well, Amira, I appreciate you making the time. I know how incredibly busy you must be. I want to briefly give an overview of the series, as you already know, but for anybody who's new to joining. Um, this is Life in the Gray, and it's connected to the Gray Boy, Blackness, and White World, the book I'm publishing September 15th. And Gray Boy is all about uh, existing sort of in between and finding home sort of in between identity. So I want to talk to people that are doing incredible things that do just that. Amira, where are you going?
I realized that I don't have anything to hold my phone on. I was holding it. I'm an old person. I forgot you have to hold your IG live stuff. So I got my laptop.
So this is Gray Boy, and this is episode 2. Amira, I'm so excited that you've joined. Um, and I'm excited for 2 reasons. One, because, well, a couple of reasons, I guess. One, because you're fantastic. Two, because you have a lot going on and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And then three, because this is episode 2, but it's you're the first person that is actually in the book to be on the series. So, fun fact, Amira is actually, I interviewed her for the book. She is in the book. Her name is not changed in the book, so you will know who she is. And when I asked her if I want to change, if she wants me to change her name, she was like, "No, they can know who I." Am. So right, I said what I said. So,
Exactly. Period.
uh, Amira, thank you for being here, and I want to get to. You've had some craziness happening recently.
Hmm.
Um, your brand, the Folklore, which is incredible, and supplies African fashion to the masses. And you've been in the media lately with some of the stuff with Taylor Swift, but you are a whole person that
Hmm.
that existed well before that. So I wanna get to the stuff before I get to that as well.
Yeah.
Um, so first, can you just introduce yourself?
Yes. So thank you again for the wonderful introduction and also for inviting me. I'm really excited. I don't remember what I said in your book. I'm sure it was crazy, but it's okay. I'll when I'll read it, I'll just be surprised myself. So yeah, so my name is Amira Rasool. I'm the founder and CEO of The Folklore. We're a e-commerce and holding company that distributes luxury African designer brands from Africa and the diaspora, particularly men's and women's apparel, accessories, and lifestyle products. And for all of you beauty fans who know that West African cocoa butter and all other skincare products from West Africa are lit, we're launching beauty in November. So
Wow,
that's exciting.
I
Like,
didn't know. Super exciting.
yeah. So we launched in September 2018. You can find us at the Folklore and on Instagram and Twitter. We just got verified on Instagram, so I'm low key a big deal now. Like before I was doing minor things, then Instagram said I was lit, then I was like, so I'm lit. So yeah, that's my background. I'm also a freelance writer, so I contribute to different publications. Recently, I've done a lot with like InStyle and Bustle and Glamour. So pretty much anyone who pays. I typically just write about Black people for fashion and arts and culture publications, which is my favorite thing. I actually like my little, Black person writes about Black person kind of like niche that I'm in. So that's also what I do.
That's awesome. So I want to get to folklore, but I want to start at the beginning, if we can. The reason that you were in the book, the reason that I wanted to reach out to talk to you is because you had a similar experience of being, particularly when you were growing up, sort of Black in a predominantly white school,
Mm-hmm.
which you talked about in the book. Can you tell me briefly just about those years and how you reflect on those?
Yeah, so I grew up in Maplewood, South Orange, very small town in New Jersey, about 30 minutes outside the city. And looking at it, it's definitely one of the most diverse suburbs you can find, especially in the Northeast.
Yeah,
Even though, it was still predominantly white, there was a nice mixture. It might be like 60% white and the rest Black and then the rest other.
yeah,
And growing up, I was literally one of the people who was just like on some I don't see color kind of stuff, because we literally, my best friend growing up, some of them were white, like we were just always hanging out together. And people, like, I think the New York Times wrote an article about, Maplewood, about how it was like a bunch of hippies from Brooklyn who, once they had families, moved. So all of the parents were pretty liberal and things. For the most part, I grew up in a really amazing space. And it
yeah.
wasn't until we got to, I think, high school, middle school a little bit, but high school, when it really hit me that I'm still a Black girl and I don't have the same privileges that my white counterparts had. And that was primarily when I started getting in trouble. So I think I got suspended about 4 times in high school. I ended up actually dropping out of high school
Yeah.
because of how I was treated by not just white people, but honestly, oh yes, carry your shoe shits. Yes. So yes, anyway, uh, I ended up leaving high school because of how poorly I was treated. So essentially, it's the same thing that applies to why people like Mill end up on probation for, you know 20 years after their first infraction. It's similar in the public school system. So once you are suspended once or get detention once, or you're seen as a problem child once, things that other people would get, maybe like in school detention for, they'll actually suspend you for. So I remember one of the times I was suspended, I asked to go to the bathroom. This is homeroom, not even a real period. I asked her to the bathroom. She told me no. And I said, well, the thing is, I have to go to the bathroom. And she said no. And so again, this is a person of color, this teacher. And
Right.
so I got up and I went to the bathroom, came back. She told me to go to the office. I was suspended. And so I think that might have been my third time being suspended. Another time, a security guard who I didn't like, and we just had beef. I had a lot
Yeah.
of beef in high
Yeah.
school, and it was mostly with adults. And I think
Yes.
really it was because I was a young Black girl who questioned things, who questioned, why we had to do certain things according to them, especially when they didn't make any sense. There's no reason why I need to even ask a grown adult to go to the bathroom at
No.
16, 17 years old. And she told them, a Black security guard told them I called her a bitch. I didn't even say that, never even said it, didn't even get into words with her. They suspended me off top. So it was just a matter and then one of the deans who actually ended up suspending me told me, a Black woman, that I was never going to amount to anything.
Wow.
And mind you, I was in, upper level classes. I, came from, what you think is like a good family, where my dad's a lawyer, both of my sisters are lawyers, they excelled in school. But my grades were terrible because I was always getting in trouble. And then I really stopped caring about school. And so, the way that they treat Black girls in school is very much kind of like they treat Black women in prison.
Hmm.
And they're not
Wow.
fighting for me the same way that they're going to fight for a black boy. So like they see that this happens with black boys in school. And so there are whole, organizations and stuff that really, fight to make that to resolve those matters. But for women, it's kind of like we're forced to figure it out on our own. And I was just fortunate to have a father who was like, look, because I told him, I was like, I'm not going back to school. This is like my
Right.
junior year. I was like, I'm not going back. So I don't know what you
Right.
want me to do. And so he found a program at the Morris County College. It's a county college close to our house. And it allowed me to take college courses. I just had to test in. And, you know, understanding was never my issue. It was the matter of I didn't like the environment that I was in. So I didn't thrive in that environment. So I took the test, I got in, and that allowed me to get my high school diploma and college credits at the same time. So I ended up actually graduating. I went to Rutgers after that, ended up graduating college a year before all of my friends. So I was supposed to be 2017, graduated cum laude from Rutgers
Yeah.
University, and now I have a master's degree from the University of Cape Town, the number one
Yeah.
university in Africa. And that really just shows you. And I studied African American history at Rutgers and African studies at UCT, and that really just shows you that your environment really matters. I think I left Columbia with like a 1.5, and I graduated college with a 3.59. And that really shows that at the end of the day. And I think I was reading this book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and it was saying that in the book that black children actually are not able to thrive off of just things like gold stars that teachers will give you.
Yeah.
We need more affirmation than that. We need to know that what we're doing has a purpose. We need to be interested in what we're doing. And when you're in a school where you're predominantly learning about just white people, European history, that's not of interest to me. So I'm not going to
Right.
put everything into, that environment. And then also when I'm not feeling, safe in that environment, when I'm not feeling valued in that environment, you're not going to get that from black kids. And they just say that that is, something that's been passed down from, you know, different generations who have endured and who have passed down generational trauma, from slavery to now.
Yeah. Yeah. So the reason I was laughing a moment ago is because,
Uh-huh.
for the record, for those that don't know, Amira had the most circuitous educational route I've ever. It was like Amira and I have been close for a long time, and it's like I remember, like, wait, I thought Amira dropped out. Now she just graduated before. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were like, wait, what is? But as we knew it would, it worked out for you in the end. I want to go back to what you were just saying a moment ago about realizing in high school, in part because of sort of the overly punitive system that you were in. You in the book you talk about this, and you talk about though not realizing in the moment um, that your blackness is why you were being perceived that way. But then you mentioned sort of getting out and into the real world and working a job and and in hearing, I think it was, I'll let you tell it, but I think it was hearing a white woman say that you had an attitude, and
Yeah.
and it was like a brain blast. So I'll
Mhm.
let you talk about sort of why that word attitude is something you've wrestled with.
Yeah, so it's crazy. When I was in high school and I was getting suspended all that time, even even my dad being as like he was some like radical, dude back in college and stuff, and he's the one who made me read the autobiography of Malcolm X and stuff like that. Even he kind of had it in my mind that I was a problem child and that that's why I was getting suspended. And so I internalized that and then actually became more of a problem than I actually really was
Right,
initially.
right,
And then when I got out of not even college, mostly even internships, and the first job I had, this woman, I literally maybe had like a week and a half of interactions with her, and it was mostly over email. And she said something about like me just having an attitude about something, and I sent and it was over email. She said I had an attitude, and I forwarded it to some other people. It was just like, I just want to check. Was I bugging? Like, did I actually say something like wrong here? And they were like, yeah, no. But it was whenever a black woman says something, it's always going to be taken as more aggressive as someone else. We have to soften our voice. We have to lower our tone. we have to really try to sugarcoat things, and that's never going to be me. And
Yeah.
I've definitely lost opportunities because of that. Same thing happened in college when I was actually at Rutgers. I ended up switching my major to African American Studies after the head of the journalism department. I wish I could give her a shout out. I just can't remember her name. This white woman from who was the head of the journalism department. She's the one who actually made me switch because I was in her class. I was actually responding to emails because like I was even busy in college. Like, excuse me, and I was like, look, listen, sis, I know where to put a comma. Like, I'm gonna get you your work. So I think I might have been responding to emails, but everyone's on their laptop in college, and she just decided to call me out, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna put it away, you know. But okay, cool. I think maybe she saw me looking at my laptop again and she was just like, you're the most disrespectful person I've ever met in my life. I looked at her and said, ever? I said, ever. Like the fact that you are 50 plus years old and I'm the most disrespectful person you've ever met without me actually even uttering a word, that right there, you can't associate that with anything else besides racism,
No.
because it was my mere presence and my and her realizing that I'm a black woman who really could give a fuck about her and what she wanted from me, that I had some sense of agency. I carried myself with a lot of confidence. That's
Right.
threatening to a lot of people. So I can walk into a room and be threatening to people just because I usually have higher degrees than anyone in my age group who's there. I'm dressed like, you know how I come into the room, fly. I speak very well. I know what I want. I don't sugarcoat things. And so that alone just gives people a negative perception of me because they're not used to black women coming in, being educated, saying what we want, getting what we want,
Yeah.
and not really having to. I don't switch my demeanor up for anyone. I'm not going to make sure that I'm not going to try to make people feel comfortable in that space. I'm not going to, you know, dumb myself down. I'm not going to, you know, do certain things that they're expecting black women to do in order to make it. And that's partially the reason why I worked for a year and I'm not looking back. I have not worked for somebody since 2017.
So we've had these conversations before, and I think that you are so good at drawing the line between being confident and knowing your worth, and being at times strong-willed,
Mhm.
but describing how that is so often misinterpreted uh, through the lens of, as you said, racism. So I appreciate that. Um, the next thing I want to talk about though is that you leave Rutgers and you go on to UCT, as you've mentioned.
Mhm.
And I know, but I don't know that we've ever talked at length about how your time in Africa like fed your soul.
Mhm.
I know how your time in South Africa, and you've subsequently been sort of all over the place in Africa, uh, was incredibly special to you. So can you talk to me about how uh, that may have forced you to rethink your own blackness in an American context as well?
Yeah, so when I went over to, the first time I went over to Africa was with our friends Kiyomi and Sophia. We had a very white experience for the most part because especially when you go to Cape Town, we spent most of our time in Cape Town. We spent a little bit of time in Johannesburg, and then we went to Cape Town for about a week. And if you go to Cape Town, you'll see, and you'll be confused. It's just a lot of white people, and all of the tourism is pretty much catered to white people and experiences that they'll like, and it's really hard to find black people and culture within like the inner city area, which is, you know, kind of like where like by Camps Bay even. And so I went there and I was like, wow, this place is amazing. Like I just like, this is like, it was like a European vacation for me. And it wasn't until I went back and about a year and a half later, when I started attending University of Cape Town, started living there, that I actually got plugged in with the culture there and the art scene and the black folks. And I always tell people, they're like, yeah, but how's like the racism there? I'm like, I literally wouldn't know because I'm only around black people all the time.
Right.
Like, and you know, it was completely different experience. It was just, since I was studying African studies, I was in class with all of the people who were leading the Fees Must Fall and the Roads Must
Yeah.
Fall movements. And it was crazy because I was the less radical person in that classroom. And I was so confused because I'm used to being the one where it's like, fuck the patriarchy, burn this shit down. But they were dead ass burning shit down. And I was just like, and I was just like, oh,
You're like,
and like
whoa,
they
whoa.
were burning it. I was like, oh, okay, okay, okay. I was like, oh, y'all are serious. So it's just like, I was like, I meant it like theoretically, but like they were dead ass serious. And
Right.
these are the most brilliant people you ever met. I always tell people in South Africa, they know their history, they know our history, they know European history. They are just armed with so much knowledge, and they really, especially because they're only 20 years out of apartheid, a little bit over 20 years, that they still have so much fight left in them.
Yeah.
And that their parent, because it was their parents' generation that was fighting this fight. It wasn't their grandparents, or it was really this
Yeah.
apartheid ended in 94.
Yeah.
So I really became a little bit more radicalized, and also just that's when I really became like a Pan-Africanist, when I really recognized, hold on one second, that's when I really recognized that we as Black people have the same struggles everywhere globally. Like, of
Yeah.
course, each country and each culture has their own unique struggles, but economic disparity, political disparity, social disparity, this is something that is affecting us globally, and that we actually have to work together in order to eradicate that, and particularly focus on Africa, because that's where most of the people are who look like us, and that's where so many resources are, and other races are focusing on Africa. And the fact that people from the diaspora aren't seeing the value in it, and we're not investing in it, we're missing out. And at this point, the only thing that's stopping us is ourselves, because we're traveling to Europe, we're traveling to all of these other countries. Now we do have a somewhat thriving Black middle class. Thriving, I'm going to use that loosely because all of us are like one paycheck away from not thriving anymore. And so that's really what got me like really into, I want to be able to connect with people in Paris and Europe, like really figure out ways for the diaspora in Africa to connect and help each other out.
And that's probably a perfect segue into the folklore, because the folklore that you've already described sort of introduces many of these brands to a Western audience, and is yes sort of a small business, but the principles that stand behind it's clearly, there's clearly passion invested in that, and a clear philosophy about the importance of introducing those brands and sort of bringing the creativity that Africa has to the world. So can you talk about that, about sort of what the folklore represents, even more so than what it is as an online business?
Yeah, so the folklore represents an economic opportunity. For so long, I would say maybe a year, 2 years before the folklore even started, there was a lot of press and a lot of attention towards the continent, particularly Nigeria and their fashion scene, and also South Africa and East Africa just as a production hub. And you have all of these huge magazines, Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Forbes, CNN, declaring Africa the new luxury frontier, but they were mostly looking at it from a lens of putting European brands on the continent. And
Right.
so and honestly, before I decided I was going to start the folklore, I actually thought that I was going to put a European retail store in South Africa. That was my initial research. And I
Yeah.
remember I went to I had a Tinder date, and I was studying it for the GRE at the time, and he helped me study for the GRE. And so, like, if you really want a tutor and you can't afford it,
Right.
I would recommend hitting up the dating apps.
Right.
Because he was like a math teacher, something crazy he knew about math, and I didn't know it. So he came over and he was teaching me about that, and I was telling him about my plan to start this cool European, like bringing North American brands to Africa. He was like, "You should do the opposite." I was like, "You don't know what you're talking about, like blah blah blah." I was like, "This is people in Africa deserve luxury too, blah blah blah." And I remember thinking when I decided to switch the idea, because I did realize that it was problematic what I was going to do.
Right.
And I remember thinking, like, I should hit this dude up. Like, it's just, I know I haven't talked to him in years, but he's probably like going to find me one day and be like, yeah,
Right. Where's
I
the
told you, girl, because he told me, he was like, you're gonna realize you should do it the opposite way. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So when we decided to launch the folklore, we really realized that it wasn't just an e-commerce platform that these brands needed. The main barrier to entry as to why these brands couldn't cater to international markets is because shipping costs. It could cost anywhere from $30 to $50 to ship one top from Lagos to London.
Yeah.
And then also the time that it takes to get from Africa to direct to customers. So what we did was I really looked at the models that Net-a-Porter had already built. I looked at the models that Motor Operandi had already built and said, how do I apply this to Africa and make it and be conscious of the fact that they don't have as many financial resources, that they're going to need a lot more coaching than the average brand. When I was reaching out to people, they didn't have line sheets. They didn't have international pricing. 75% of the brands we worked with did not sell online and still only sell online through our platform and some competitors that have come and tried to bite off what we're doing. So we were able to, really coach them beyond just, oh, put yourself on our platform. We came in and said, hey, this is what we're going to price it for. What they are pricing for locally, we doubled, if not tripled, those prices, because we recognize that luxury customers in North America and Europe, which is our target customer, that they're willing to pay more for luxury, and you have to price things at a certain price point for it to even be considered luxury.
Yeah.
And I got 20% though. So yeah, it was really great to get to know these brands and see how we could build a platform that worked for them. So we actually have the product shipped seasonally. We have products shipped to New York. So when customers place an order, we fulfill instead of having the designers have to carry that burden. We do that. We ship directly from New York. We offer, same day pickup in Manhattan. We make it a very luxury experience. And we really want people to not even just buy these brands, but know about them. That's why we have our editorial section. We have our podcast. We really want to create content around this contemporary, urban aesthetic that's being built in Africa and in the diaspora.
Yeah, so I want to talk a bit about with the time we have left. Where obviously we'll get to the Taylor bit, but
I
before
can't
that,
talk too much about Taylor.
I know
Okay.
that we can speak to it to the extent that is not legally binding. So but what I do want to talk about even before we get to that is before sort of the spotlight was really shown on you as a result of the recent controversy. There was a lot of it. You were getting a lot of attention because of the Black Lives Matter movement and recent resurgence in it following the George Floyd murder. So I want to hear from you what that's like. What it's like to be working on something for so long that is important for so many totally unrelated reasons, and then all of a sudden people are catching on in a time when frankly it's politically convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I just saw my phone blowing up and orders coming in.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, I was like, it's a Tuesday and this has never happened before. What is going on? And then I start seeing all of, the folklore on all of these lists. And then I started to understand what was going on. I mean, I'm totally here for white guilt. I totally like that. If it makes dollars, it makes sense. Like I am in no way going to try to call people out. You're just doing this now. We know why they're doing it. Now let's
Yeah.
just make sure they keep doing it. That's how I really feel about the situation. I'm not giving anyone a pat on the back. I'll say thank you because that was really nice to feature us. But I'm not about to sit here and, really thank people for doing what they should have done in the first place. And what I am doing though is I am making sure to hold these people accountable. I'm saying, okay, cool, you put us on this list. Now the next time I reach out about a feature, let's make sure that
Right.
you're responding to my email. And even with what we're doing at the Black and Fashion Council, with, you know, I'm on the brands committee where we're focusing on uplifting Black owned brands. And when we want to do a collaboration with somebody like a Nike and we hit you up, like, let's make sure that we're getting a response and that we're really, you're treating this like you would treat any other European designer. So I was definitely like, we've been prepared for this. Our company has been prepared for this. We've been operating on a high level. So when it came down to when all of this stuff started blowing up and we started getting a bunch of orders, we handled it like a boss, because that's what the company is. We are 5 Black women who, you know, are running a company off of a shoestring budget,
Yeah.
and we are doing it at such a high level that people think we have all of these investors, which, if you're an investor out there, hit a play up, because we are raising our pre-seed round, $25,000 minimum check sizes, just so you're aware. Contact at thefolklore.com. I'll send you our investor deck. Anyway, so we were ready for this. And I always say, like, you need to be prepared for your moments. Like,
Yeah.
I've always treated this business as if it was like the hottest shit out. And
Right.
now I'm feeling like it's still the hottest shit out. And now we're finally getting recognition for us doing something
Yeah.
that has never been done before, doing it on a high level, making it beautiful, and, you know, really putting on for the continent and for the diaspora, and giving people opportunities beyond just the designers. When we have photo shoots, it's usually an all Black women set, photographer, videographer, editor, everything. I'm really intentional about who I hire. I'm intentional about, you know, what investors I'm going to take on. I'm intentional about our image, not trying to sell anyone Africa, but trying to sell products made from by designers from Africa. I'm not trying to tell their stories. We have to recognize that as Black Americans, we have privilege. So I wasn't about to go into Africa like Columbus and say, all right, I found this shit. Everybody, look, give me a pat on the back, and I'm the queen of this Africa stuff. I let
Yeah.
the brands tell their story. That's why we had the podcast. That's why every time somebody drops a collection, we have a Q&A with them on our blog. We want them to tell you about whether or not their collection is inspired by, you know,
Yep.
their heritage, or whether it's inspired by something they saw on Comme des Garçons 20 years ago.
Right.
So that's really how I look at it. Take advantage of this moment. Keep the pressure on them. Make sure that when people are reaching out, that you're offering more long-term partnerships. They're going to reach out and say, hey, we want to do this with you for the moment. And then you need to counter with, okay, here's a plan. I send like PDFs of, these were some other ideas that we can work on in the future. So this is a great first step. Now let's figure out how you can continue to use your platform to put us on, and we can collaborate, because we're also giving them social capital when we decide to
Of
lend
course.
our voice and lend our image to them. So we should need to make sure that, also take advantage of the fact that they really want to connect with you, that they
Yeah.
really want to do business with you, and let them understand that you're not going to do the 30% or the 35% that they do give to everyone else, because we're not in the same position as everyone else. You can't treat us like the European companies. You can't treat us like European brands. We're going to need you to actually understand that we are operating on a deficit, and that if you really want to work with us, and that's the same thing with investors, they're saying we want to invest in Black founders now. If you really want to do that, you need to change your methodology of how you work with people, what you consider an investable business, a good return, a desirable market.
So, so with what little time we have left, I do want to briefly cover the headlines that you've been in recently.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't leave much time with it. No, leave much time for it, knowing that we won't get too deep into it. But for those that don't know, if it's all right, I'll briefly summarize. Amira's been working on the folklore for many years. It was, in my opinion, popping long before any celebrities tweeted about it. But then, very recently, Taylor Swift released an album that was called Folklore. I don't know, because I missed it. I didn't hear it. But as part of that album release, Taylor Swift also, her team put together merch. The merch had a logo on it that looked incredibly similar to your logo. You all had some back and forth, and some agreement that I don't know anything about between the two of you, but also her sort of shouting out the folklore on her very, very large platform. Um, and I imagine a lot of attention sort of came from that, and you were all in the headline about 2 weeks ago. So I'm wondering, instead of talking specifically to that controversy, I'm wondering if you can just tell me about how you're feeling. I know how you felt a month ago about appropriation, about white people biting off of Black culture.
Uh-huh.
I wonder how you feel today about what that looks like when white megastars lift elements from Black culture, and if your feelings on that have changed at all.
Speaking generally,
Yes.
um, it looks like a check. So it looks like when you have large corporations, large brands, which do this consistently, biting off of Black designers, Black talent, it looks like a check. And that's all it needs to look like.
Yeah.
Honestly, a check and also recognition. Because at the end of the day, these brands are going to benefit greatly off of, stealing from us. And we just need to not let them. And that means if it has to be calling them out on social media, if it has to be getting your lawyers on them, if it has to be a combination of both, we can't allow that to go unchecked. I've never been someone to stand out from a fight. I've been fighting with grown people since I was in high school, like I mentioned. So that's never going to be it. Whenever people come up to me, I'm like, first thing is like, did you get a lawyer? Okay, you don't know a lawyer? Here's this Black owned company called Court Buddy. Why
Right.
don't you go on Court Buddy, see what Court Buddy's talking about? There are also a lot of people who will do it pro bono, or they'll do it on a contingent basis because they know that it'll be a payout. So also making sure that your shit is tight too. They can't steal from us if we have the trademark. They can, but then they're gonna have to pay up. I have a trademark for the folklore. It's been in use since 2018. Making sure that our shit is tight, and that's something that we're going to be working on with the Black and Fashion Council, with our brands committee. Having lawyers come on and do like a session, a virtual session where they're going to teach people this is the checklist of what you need to do when you want to start your brand to protect your rights. Don't sign any contracts without having at least a homie that's your lawyer look after it. Or if you can't find a homie, like literally ask me, and I can be able to tell you, like, there's Avo, there's all these different types of websites that help you find attorneys. And it could be something where if it's a contract that only takes an hour to read over, you might end up spending $400-$500, but it's better than getting like stuck up on some, like, how the Telfar and Gap thing went down. Like, that shit should have never happened. And so yeah, I really think that we shouldn't let it slide anymore. And because we have the internet, and because we have people like me who will definitely write an article about it, don't let that shit slide. Like,
Right.
like, mm-mm, mm-mm.
Well, Amira, I love and appreciate you, which I think you know. Thank you. I'm so excited. Part of the reason that I'm so excited about the book, besides the obvious reasons, is that I get to have so many of these conversations, particularly with people like you that are actually in the book and have seen it the whole way through, and I'm just proud of you. So keep
I'm
fighting.
proud of you, okay? WEB Decole, okay? Okay?
Thank you.
You're literally out here. You wrote a whole book and it's being published, and you have a whole. I saw you loop me in with your PR team. I said, Cole's team. I said, oh. I
That's
said,
on.
oh, so our
That's
people,
on.
you need me to talk to your people. My people should talk to your people. That's how we scheduling things now.
That's,
Bet.
that's off the record. I'm maintaining humble.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you. And can't wait to talk soon and hear how everything's going.
Yeah, man. We'll talk this weekend.
Sounds good. Later.
All right. Bye.